For 2 days a year, thousands of people converge on a farm in Knoxville, Virginia to see living military history. The event, run by Americans in Wartime Experience, has been sharing tanks with the masses for 25 years. And it all started as an idea by Alan Kors.
Call this a tank party. That is not why we're doing this museum. It's about those who serve their country. It's like Americans in wartime.
Alan Kors is probably the most patriotic human being on the face of the earth. He started this project about 25 years ago, traveling on a trip. He saw a Jeep. He thought he had it. He didn't, so he bought it. Had it shipped over from Europe. All the tanks you see, he's either accumulated over the years by buying or trading or somehow he's gotten his hands on it. He's put the money and effort into rebuilding a lot of these vehicles. Everything here is operational. Everything works. Everything runs.
I've been interested in military history since I was a kid, and got interested in collecting guns and military rifles and pistols. And then in 1982, I decided I wanted to own one military vehicle. That's what I told my wife. And my car went outside of the garage. Her car went outside. I filled a warehouse in Warrenton and a warehouse in Crystal City with military vehicles. And finally bought this place in 1989. And started having open house small events.
25 years ago, the first time we had an open house, I think we had 30 people sitting on the bank here, and that was it, and a few tanks. And now you take a look at it, and it has grown every year. I built the first PA system out of a missile simulator set, and that was our first PA. Now we have guys that really do the job very well, and it's just a great show. Can't believe the amount of people now that show up, and it's just been a great thing to watch it grow.
I realized that my real interest was in those that served. The vehicles were interesting, but that wasn't for me what it was all about. So as the events grew and more people came, I decided to again have serious open house events where you really got a lot of people involved. We had 16,000 people here last year for this open house on a 2-day period. It'd be interesting to see whether we have that many people come again. We had people getting out from under COVID last year, and that's maybe where they came.
Well, I think how important it is, you can measure that by the number of people that come to Aden Field in the middle of nowhere, basically. And if they didn't think it was important, why they would come here each time, and the numbers are large.
He's a human being who really cares about history, he cares about education, and more importantly, he cares about our men and women in uniform who fight for our freedom every day.
It's essentially the bulldozer's little brother. A lot more focused on mobilization and being able to move. We have rubber tracks so we can also drive it onto concrete without tearing up roads or anything like that. It does everything a bulldozer can, except it just has a little less power, so you can't push as much. So you got to do it a few times, and the point of it is to get it in and out of situations. That's what we use it for. So we work in blade teams with them. So we'll carry it, drop it, do a job, and then get out as fast as possible. So that's why we use a deuce, and so we can move around really quick. But overall, it's just like the bulldozer. Nothing too crazy, other than just how it looks. It's kind of unique. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. I was just gonna say out here. So walking around, we got a winch, and the battery is over here where the battery switch would be. Has tools. You can go check out the engine and all that here. You can see it's hydraulic fluid right here. That's the meter for it. This plate, it lifts up and down, rotates left to right. Also, like you can point one side more towards the ground and like rotate it like that.
We're representing a recon element from the 69th Infantry Division after these guys take the city of Leipzig, the fifth largest German city at the time. They're going to send out 3 patrols looking for our Russian allies in and around the Elbe River area. So they're going to send out recon elements and vehicles like this, of course Willis Jeeps, weapons carriers, things like that. They'll get to in and around the town, city of Torgau on the banks of the Elbe River. 3 patrols are going to go. The first one that's going to link up with the Soviets will be Kotzebue's patrol. Lieutenant Buck Kotzebue and his patrol will link up with them at Strela. Torgau gets a lot of the attention though, but on April 25th, east meets west. There's no more Germans in between, and so for these guys, their war ends on April 25th. A little more than a week later, May 8th, the Germans will finally capitulate and surrender. So we're portraying the 69th going out looking for our Russian allies and letting them know that we're friendly. So in terms of the vehicle itself, like I said, it's just a light recon vehicle, lightly armored, can get in and out of tight spots pretty quick. The 37 millimeter gun is capable, like I said, just to kind of get out of tight spots with 2 machine guns, 37 millimeter gun, but not really going to be sitting around for any kind of tank-on-tank engagements. We're going to get in, take a look around, and be able to get out and have some kind of defensive capabilities while we're getting out of Dodge.
I am Rosie the Riveter, and I am here representing the home front. Rosies were the ones that went to work when the men were at war. We became welders, we became carpenters, we did any kind of a job that the men were not available to do anymore. And basically there was a presence in World War I, but it became even heavier in World War II. And after that, women never really left the workforce. We stayed in the workforce after that. Don't realize the work that went on at home to support the war, the sacrifices that were made, and without knowing that, we're going to be doomed to be repeating problems and having issues come up again and again.
I'm Mason Turner. I'm Maverick Jacks. We're from Boy Scout Troop 966 in Sterling, Virginia. So we are out here putting up signs for my Eagle Scout project. There's a demonstration. They have a picture of the vehicle, a picture of the country's flag, name, and information about the vehicle. And we have made one for every single thing here.
So this was a Czechoslovakian development. It was actually a further development of their upgrade program for the T-55 series of main battle tank. the T-55 essentially used World War II types of technology for targeting, fire control, all of that, and just continued on through the Cold War. So they wanted to upgrade it to be, obviously it wouldn't be as good as the T-72, but they wanted to give it the competitive edge that the 72 had over the initial T-55s. So the big upgrades were the ability to fire a guided anti-tank rocket out of the main gun. They also added a barrel shroud, which evened out the heat dispersion, and upgraded fire control system for all of that. They also upgraded the armor heavily to protect against heat rounds, mainly rockets, such as the M72 LAW and some other shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons. And the rubber skirts would help with that. The oblique armor on the cheeks would also help with that. They added more armor underneath the driver's compartment in case it hit an anti-tank mine without crew survivability. They also added smoke dischargers along the sides that discharge forward. You can see on the side here. And like many Russian tanks along the back, they have the additional fuel drums, but they added a special kit that you'd be able to attach to the drums while they're mounted on the rear to feed right into the main fuel system, which wasn't a standard feature initially. They dropped the tanks before going into combat. They'd also have to drop them to get the fuel out on the earlier T-55s. So they made it so that you didn't have to do that anymore, just direct feed right into the engine. This one specifically was originally out of East German service. These were made by the Czechoslovakian military contractors or companies that built for the nation, and then they were sold or traded to other satellite nations of the Soviet Union. East Germans only had enough money to equip some of their tank units with T-72s, so they traded their T-55s to the Czechs for the AM-2 upgrades.
Graciously opened up his farm to us to allow us to see his collection, and he wants people to see that. We're Americans in Wartime is all about educating others and honoring our veterans and inspiring others.
We hope as many people can come as possible to help us spread the word about this museum project.
Now, a new kind of museum is under development, where we can experience and appreciate what our country's heroes faced in their time at war.
We have 70 acres of land right on Route 95 in Dale City, Virginia. And it sits smack dab in the middle of Fort Belvoir, where the new Army Museum is, and the Marine Museum. And so I call it the Military History Trail. You can start at the Army, and you can go through their museum behind glass, everything's static, can't touch pretty much. But then you can come outside and bring your kids and loved ones and family members. You can smell the diesel when they're moving. You can learn the history of this vehicle that was in Kosovo or was in World War II, you know, or was at Iwo Jima, or all the vehicles have a history. And so we're building this new 70-acre experience, I want to say, because it's not like a museum, it's an experience. We want children to come out and be able to have fun and get on top of it and learn and touch and feel and take a tank ride. And who knows, maybe they'll want to pursue a career in the military, but at least they'll learn and we'll be happy. And we hope to have it completed in about 24 months. We've got 50 acres cleared. We've got a lot of infrastructure we've completed, and retaining walls and a bridge will go in this year, and then we'll start building out the landscapes of war, which will be living landscapes where you can take in a battle scene from each of the wars in the 20th and 21st century.
So this is an M50 Super Sherman. It was modified by the Israelis starting about 1955. They bought the long 75 cannon off of the French military after inspecting the AMX-13. They found that the AMX was too small, too lightly armored However, they loved the gun. So Israel bought a bunch of the guns and basically did what they could to modify them to fit on their existing Sherman holes that they had from the 50s. One of the things you'll notice is the added armor on the front. That's just because they're going against more modern tanks, so they're going to need better armor than what was already in use. You'll see a lot of things like the pock marks from bullet holes. Any Israeli tank that you find anywhere in the world, it's seen combat at some point in its life. So it's just part of its life. The numbers here, they're death numbers. Each tank at the battalion level was welded numbers onto it so that they could identify the crew in the event that the tank was a total loss. If a fire broke out on the tank and burned, it would remove all of the paint markings and they wouldn't be able to identify what the tank was and who the crew were inside of it. So these welded numbers were almost guaranteed to always be there no matter what. There's a set on the front and there's a set on the back as well.
I've been doing tank farm pretty much for about, I would say 10 years, 10 or 12 years anyway. And I've either come here to do combat engineers or do armored cavalry with different groups of folks.
So have you seen in the 10 years the popularity change?
I think the popularity of the event has grown and has risen, especially I think immediately after the cessation of the restrictions for COVID. The crowds here have been quite large. And plus the collection continues to add things and complete restorations that there's something new every year. So I strongly recommend if anybody has not come to this event, they should come.
I've been with the open house, this is about my 20th or so year at the open house. This is my first year doing the aid station. Starting over here, we have some of the tools of the battalion aid station. Each surgeon would have had his tool roll here, scalpels, scissors and such. Moving along here, you have your various bandages of size and shape for different uses, including your tourniquet, some with even scissors. And then you have various plaster bandages, surgical sponges, and then over here we have your sterilization area where you would use your burner here, your stove, to sterilize your equipment using distilled water. Once the equipment's sterilized, they would pull it out and set it aside, and you're ready for surgery, like such. And over here you have your clean area where you're going to scrub up for your surgery. Get your fingernails clean with your scrub brush and scrub all the way up to your elbows, as they used to say, with your towels. And for anesthesia for the patients, we have some nice ether. And with the ether mask here, they would apply a drop or so at a time, so as not to choke the actual patient. You can't actually choke the patient if they receive too much ether. Moving over here, we have an example of a patient with a sustained injuries up at the front. As you can see, he's taken some shrapnel to the face. So he's been stabilized by a medic up at the front. He was given plasma at first, just enough to get him stable. They pulled him back here to the aid station. We've got him on whole blood now. That way he can get the platelets that carry the oxygen back into his body. And as you can tell, he's had one shot of morphine. The medic up at the front here, he gave him a shot of morphine, and then they pinned the syringe there to the collar. Moving over here, we have some of the tools that would have been used in such a surgery. The scalpel, it would have been stitched up afterwards. You got your needle there for any infection that they would have had to administer an anesthetic or any kind of antiseptic. And then, of course, the shrapnel there. And then moving over here, the officer in charge would have had his personal setup for his desk here. Everything from keeping with the morning report, which would have been a casualty report, to keeping certain medications as morphine and such under lock and key. Also, for any man who couldn't take morphine for anything, that could also administer a shot of whiskey or give them a cigarette to calm them down.
If you don't know your history and you don't understand your history, you will relive your history. The other thing is, when you have a society, the anthropologists, the sociologists would say a society is people with a common past, a common ethos, a common belief system. Not down to what religion, whatever, but a common background. Well, these vehicles are part of our military history. And because they're part of our military history, they're part of our background. And so the people that understand these vehicles understand the Americans that fought in these vehicles, died in these vehicles, or fought against these vehicles, and 2 and 3 generations past.